Everybody, and welcome to Homemade. I'm so excited that you're here today. I'm Bonnie. I'm going to be your guide today. We are going to the land of Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte. That's a Black Forest cake, and this whole thing is brought to you by Savor Recipes. We're going to savor the world today. We're going to go to Germany, and we're going to make, I think, one of my favorite cakes of all time. So that's what we're going to knock out today. Our chef in the chat today is Anna. How you doing, Anna?
Hello, hello. Good to see everyone already.
So good to see you. This is going to be super fun. This cake is great. One of the reasons I love it is you already love all the flavors in a Black Forest cake. You love chocolate, you love cherries, you love whipped cream, and we're going to put it all together. But instead of building a layer cake with a lot of extra steps involved, we're going to make one big sheet cake. And it's going to be absolutely delicious. It's going to be easy and elegant, but really simple. So something that's going to travel well for a potluck, something that you can make ahead of time. In fact, you have to. This isn't one of those things that you knock out and then eat right away, which is kind of great. So you have time to clean up yourself, your kitchen, etc., and then you can walk out the door with your cake or serve it. It means more servings and less stress. So that's what we're up to today. So by the way, this I mentioned is from Savor the World. So they have a whole bunch of great recipes. And you can go around the world with your kitchen. Savorrecipes.com. Anna's going to throw that in the chat so you can see some details and click over there when you have time. But right now we're going to get started on making the actual cake. So this is called a Kirschtorte. It is specific to the Black Forest region of Germany. So if you were looking at a map of Germany, it would be in the bottom left of your map. So that's going to be in the southwest of Germany. And the Black Forest is as old as the hills. And one of the things they're famous for in that region are their cherries, which are very tart. So depending on if you live in cherry country like we do here in Seattle, we have beautiful tart pie cherries that we grow here. We have luscious sweet Bing cherries, and we have Rainiers. There's a lot of different cherries that are available. So when you go to make the recipe, you're going to get the best looking cherries you can find. And don't worry too much about which ones they are. Get the tart ones if you can. If the sweet ones look great, that's totally fine. We'll balance it out with the flavors with some acid or some sweet if we need to. So I'm going to get started with the filling for the cake. So it's going to be a beautiful chocolate cake. It's going to have a layer of almost like a cherry jam and a layer of whipped cream. And then we're going to put cherries on top and shave a bunch of chocolate. And then, I'm going to have to eat some just to make sure it's okay. So I'm going to start here. What I have in here is some cherries that I already got started. They're on low heat right now. I'm not wanting this to just go crazy, but these are cherries that have been pitted, and I tore them in half. If you want to pit them and slice them, it's totally fine. I'm always in a hurry, and I don't want to set a cherry down and cut a knife through it, so I generally just put them in the pan and toss them, tear them apart. Over here, I've got some cherries. I wanted to show you how you can pit these if you need to. So here is a cherry, so cute, and it's got the pit in it. So you can take a straw if you don't have a cherry pitter, and you can just kind of poke down through the top where the stem is, and then turn it over and poke down through the bottom. And then you're going to get that pit out of there. See that? And then I'm just going to do that a couple more times so you can see it. So go down the top. You might be able to poke all the way through. Every time I try to poke all the way through, I poke into myself, so I'm not into that. So I'm just going to push it through like that. See that right there? We don't want that, but we do want that. Your hands will be a beautiful cherry mess when you do this. I would say if you moisturize your cuticles beforehand with a little bit of cooking oil, you won't have super red cuticles when you do this. All right.
Bonnie, I have a quick question for you. Someone in the chat is wondering, can you use frozen cherries if they're not in season? Maybe you don't have them on hand.
Absolutely. What a great question. Yeah, of course you're going to use frozen if you can't get fresh, because the frozen ones, they're made when they're frozen when the cherries are perfect, and you definitely want that. You want the cherries to be perfect. So I don't care if you get them fresh or frozen. I'm going to cook them down anyway. I would like you to have fresh cherries for on top. If you can't get fresh cherries for on top, instead of using frozen for the top, get a nice jar of like a beautiful maraschino, or you might even find like a pretty jar of sour cherries. And those are nice because the cherries are going to still have their integrity. They're going to be more solid and less weepy. So that's what I would do. If it's out of season, I would get, I would say about a pound of cherries frozen will be a good substitute for the recipe that you have here. And then just get yourself a jar of something for garnish. The garnish is nice because it tells you what's inside. If you don't have that beautiful garnish, you don't really know what's in the cake. And it's always nice to tell people what you're giving them. It's kind of like that old story of like when you write an essay, you tell people what you're going to tell them, you tell it to them, and then you tell them what you told them. And desserts are like that too. So you want to look at the cake and be like, oh, I see chocolate. Oh, I see cherries. This must be a cherry chocolate cake. Good to know. All right, great question. So this guy is on low heat. I'm going to pump it up just a bit to get it going. My goal here is to break down the cherries. This is only going to take about 5, 6, 7 minutes. And right now it's just cherries and their juice because I've had it going for a couple minutes, and so they're starting to release some liquid. I'm going to add a couple more things. I'm going to add some sugar. This is a 1/4 cup of sugar. Depending on what's going on with your cherries, if they're very tart, you might want to add a little bit more sugar. If they're very sweet, you might not want to add as much. So just taste a cherry and see what you're working with. I'm going to add some lemon juice. So it's funny to think about making it sweet and then making it tart, but when you add a lemon or some kind of acid in there, it just brings the flavor out more. It brightens it up, it elevates it. So I want to have that contrast be really pronounced. So a bright acid like lemon up against the sweetness of the sugar and the cherries is so great. So I'm going to do a couple teaspoons of that in there. And you can see I'm adding liquid, right? So that means I'm going to have to cook it down again so it turns into something syrupy. And then I'm going to thicken it in a couple of minutes. So this is just a little bit of cornstarch. Cornstarch is a sweetener, but primarily it's a thickener. So anything that's a starch is going to have a really big, complex molecule that's really tightly bound up. And when I mix it with liquid, that'll loosen it up a little, and then I'll add it into my dish. And what'll happen to it is those little tightly wound starch molecules are going to unwind. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take it in here and I'm going to shake it up really well. So anytime you add starch in a powder form to anything, make sure you make a slurry. So this is a slurry. I love that word, slurry. And what's great about a slurry is now when I add it to here, it's not going to give me like little tiny clumps of starch that I have to like chase around with my spatula. If you've ever made like gravy around Thanksgiving or something with cornstarch and you just drop the starch in there, you will spend the rest of your days finding those little bits of starch that don't get broken down. And what's cool though about the slurry when you do this is it's already in a liquid form now, so it'll be easy to mix in. And you might see there's a little steam coming off here too, and that's great. That's what I want. I want it to be steamy. I want it to release as much moisture as I can get out of the cherries. So this is just going to hang out here for about 5 minutes. I'm going to turn the heat down just a skosh, and I'll add the slurry at the very end once I've cooked this a bit more to get as much juice out of the cherries as I can. So we'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to switch over to Cakeland, so join me over here in Cakeland. So what I'm going to do first is talk a little bit about the ingredients. And as you look at the ingredients that are in here, all my bakers out there, you're probably got your wheels turning right now because the ingredients in this are pretty much the same. Ratios are different, but the actual ingredients, very similar to another cake that we all love and adore. So think about that for a minute as I talk about this. All right, so I'm going to put the liquid ingredients in here to start. So I'm going to get some eggs going. I've got 2 eggs. All my ingredients are at room temperature except for my coffee, which we just made. So eggs are going in. I'm starting with the eggs because I want to combine the eggs really well. Woo! Before I add anything else, so I can get my liquids really well combined. So that's why I'm using the glass bowl, so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Down it goes, and boom. So just get these really well combined. You're not trying to add a bunch of air. You just want them to be very, very well combined. You don't want any little wispy bits of egg that aren't combined. So just make sure they're nicely, like as if you're gonna make scrambled eggs. You're not trying to add a bunch of air, but make sure it's broken down well. Okay, the next thing I have here is buttermilk. It's, I think, a cup and a half or 2 cups of butter. No, it's a cup of buttermilk, and then it's a half cup of vegetable oil. And it's kind of hard to tell because I mixed them together already, but that's what's in here. It's in your recipe too. So I'm just going to add this in. There's your oil, see that? And I'm going to get these really well combined. It's not going to be perfectly emulsed, but it is going to be combined. And that's why I like to have a big tall bowl so it doesn't go flying all over the place. All right, and now I'm just going to add in a little bit of coffee. This is a cup of coffee, and by a little bit I mean a cup. just a tiny bit of coffee. We actually used espresso today because we have an espresso machine here today, so it's going to rock and roll. And then this is vanilla extract. Boom. So you can see what I mean by having it really well combined, right? All right. So next up are my dry ingredients. So what I have is flour, all-purpose flour. And cocoa powder. And it's funny, I think this is only 65 grams of cocoa powder, which is about 3/4 of a cup, but look how much that is. So I recommend, if you can, weighing your ingredients just so you know what you're dealing with. And you see these little clumps in here? That's what I want to get rid of. I don't want any clumps in my dish at all. So I'm going to kind of swirl those around a little bit to really break them up. Give this guy a little stir real quick. Shoo, shoo, shoo.
In the meantime, I'm asking the chat,
yes,
what other cake relies on the acid from the buttermilk, some chocolate. We have someone saying Texas sheet cake.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. Is there buttermilk in Texas sheet cake traditionally? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but
I'm not sure either.
We'll wait for a couple more responses.
Okay, good. I can't wait.
Someone is asking, can you use a sifter for this step?
Absolutely. Of course you can. Definitely use a sifter. Sifter's fine. Run the whole thing through your sifter. I love it.
Also, can you sub all-purpose flour?
Oh, this is all-purpose flour. Was that the question?
Or I guess, sorry, can you use any other flour?
Oh, you mean like an alternate flour? Like you know, I would say if you're trying to make this gluten-free, you can experiment a little bit, which I assume, is that why you want to sub the flour so you can do gluten-free? There's a lot of really good gluten-free baking mixes out there, so I would definitely check one of those. I'd be really careful about just subbing it without somebody else's engineered gluten-free flour, because this cake needs structure, and so you get a lot of structure from the gluten. So I would be careful about doing that, but there's a lot of really good ones out there. That's what I would recommend. I'm going to add a couple more dry ingredients. I have baking powder, I have baking soda, and I have salt. And so these guys are all going in. It's, I think it's a tablespoon of baking powder, a tablespoon of baking soda, and then maybe 2 teaspoons of salt, or a teaspoon of salt, somewhere in there. I'm trying to remember what I did. Oh, a half teaspoon of salt, right. Okay, so see how it's really nicely combined? Now here's a weird thing about this recipe. I'm adding the sugar. So sugar is not traditionally considered to be a dry ingredient, but it is in this recipe. So we're going to treat the sugar like it's a dry ingredient, and we're going to add it here. And the reason I can get away with that is I'm not trying to use the sugar to tunnel through a bunch of fat, like in butter. You know, a lot of times you're creaming together sugar and butter, and what's happening is that sugar is tunneling through the cool butter and leaving a path of air, and then that air expands in the oven when it's baking, and it's amazing. We're not doing that in this case. In this case, we are trying to just combine all the ingredients and not worry about adding air mechanically. We're gonna add air chemically. So when I say chemically, I'm talking about the baking powder and the baking soda, right? Okay, so here's your liquids. Just give it one more quick, all right? And I'm actually just gonna add, you know what I need is a little spoon. Hold on, I gotta grab a spoon.
In the meantime,
Sometimes.
any other guesses for
Yeah, I'm dying.
a similar cake?
Let's go, let's go. All right, so now I'm just gonna start to add it in. Spoonfuls at a time. But they have to be really well combined individually before you add them in. You don't want to overmix this, but at the same time, you have to have a little bit of mixing because you want to get a little bit of that gluten to develop so you have some structure. And there's a lot of moisture in this cake, right? Lots of moisture. We have buttermilk, we have oil, we have coffee. I mean, it's crazy.
Kind of sounds like best of both worlds. It's a very moist cake. I know a lot
Yes.
of people hate that word, but very good texture and sounds like it also has really great structure.
Yeah, it's great. It's so much fun. And the thing that's great about it too is we're doing a bit of a deep dive on how to make this cake, how you're going to assemble this cake. But when you do this at home, it's going to take you, you know, like 8 minutes to put this whole thing together. All right, so I'm just going to finish the mixing. All my ingredients are in.
We have another guess in the chat. Could it be red velvet or devil's food cake?
Beautiful, beautiful.
Ding,
Yeah,
ding,
it could
ding.
be. I love it. Okay, so red velvet, very similar. Red velvet is low on cocoa powder, just enough to cause the reaction that traditionally used to make it red. But devil's food cake uses a fair amount of coffee and chocolate and buttermilk, all your favorite things in one place. So nice guess. Gold star.
We have a winner.
We have a winner. Well, you know, in the old days, people didn't add food coloring to red velvet cake. It just got colored because of the reaction between the acid in the cocoa powder and the buttermilk and the chocolate, like with the baking soda. So you get this little red tinge to the cake. So they started calling it devil's food cake. And also it tastes delicious. So devilishly good, perhaps. Okay, so this is your batter. It's quite liquidy, right? We're not used to batters that are this liquid, but this one is. So that's about what you want it to be. You saw that I finished mixing it myself with this paddle attachment. It works with this motor or with this motor, right? So get in there and just scrape down the sides. You don't have to get a new thing dirty if you don't want to, okay? My oven's preheated to 350, so it's ready to go. I have here my baking pan. This is a 9x13. It's lined with a piece of parchment paper, and it's been sprayed with a little pan spray. You can also use butter if you want. It's fine, but there's no butter in the recipe, so there's no need to butter it. You can just use a little pan spray. You can also just take some of the oil that you are putting in here and just smear it around with your hands and then put in the parchment. And you don't have to spray the parchment. Some recipes want you to spray and then put the paper in and then spray again. This one, it's not necessary. All right, so this is going in to here. Isn't that great? I love it. I know, so good.
I do have another question in the chat. Yeah. Someone is asking, does it make a difference if the cocoa is natural or Dutch process alkalized?
Great question. So what's the difference between ingredients, cocoa powder, period, and ingredients, cocoa powder processed with alkaline? So what they do, some people when they first had chocolate or cocoa with no sweetener added were like, oh, it's so bitter, I can't stand it. And so they started adding this alkaline to counter the acidity, to counter that bitter flavor. And so when you get a Dutch processed cocoa powder, that's what they're doing. So in some instances, you want to take that away. You don't want to have that bitterness. In some instances, you would love to have that little extra bitterness. So here's a funny thing to think about. In this recipe, getting back to my comparisons, in this recipe, it is Dutch process preferred. So we're trying to take that extra bitterness out and have the cake be a little sweeter. Devil's food cake, you want to leave that acidity in, so you're not going to use a Dutch processed cocoa powder, if you can. It's not the end of the world. But you're not going to use a Dutch processed cocoa powder, and what you're going to end up with is something that's just a little bit bitter, that's going to be a nice contrast to whatever, usually that one has like a big, beautiful, rich chocolate ganache on it. So those things like to work with each other. Great question. But the bottom line is whatever you have is going to be fine. So please don't make yourself crazy and have extra cocoa powder if you're just trying to knock this out for a weekend, gathering. Okay, so here's my cake ready to go. I like to spin it a little bit in the pan, and the reason I'm doing that is to make sure it doesn't dome in the middle. So I give it a little spin, and it helps it like run up on the sides a little bit, and that will help. And this is great for round cake pans too. So whenever you're making a really liquidy cake like that, go for it. This is going in the oven, and we're gonna set a timer for 30 minutes. So
Timer
Anna, if you
is
will
set.
check me on that.
Sounds good.
That would be great. And then I will know where I'm going. All right, so that is the cake. Bam, done.
Boom, bam.
Boom,
I like
I
that
know, I love
spinning.
it. And like I said, when you do this at home, you're not going to be talking to people about it. So it's going to take you like no time. All right, let's get back to this guy. This is looking beautiful. Do you see all the liquid in here? Yeah, look at all that. Cherry goodness. Also, oh my gosh, when I smell it, it's just a face full of cherries. I love it. Okay, you remember our slurry. I'm going to give it one more quick shake, and then in it's going to go. So here's my slurry going in. And it does take a minute, about a minute, for the starches to open up on the heat. So you can't drop it in and then just walk away. You have to make sure, or turn it off or anything. You have to make sure that you let the starches open up. So the heat is what's going to allow the starches to, so they're sort of like these tight tangles, and they're going to untangle like this, and then they're going to attach themselves to all the moisture that's in there, and that's what the thickening is coming from. And you definitely want that. This is supposed to be like a thin cherry jam. That's what you're doing.
And
So,
Bonnie,
yeah.
if someone has cherry compote, whether they bought it or they made it,
Go
works,
for it.
Perfect.
Use it. Yeah, so if you shoot down right now, Richard, you can all see how now when I pull across, see how it's not liquidy all of a sudden? The liquids are all still there, but they've been significantly thickened by the starch, which is great.
That color.
Isn't that gorgeous?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like rich and lush and alive, If you're curious about what it tastes like, you can have a little bit on the edge of your spatula. You can also like smear it on a plate and just give it a little taste and make sure you got there. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay. Oh, it's so delicious. All right. So I'm going to take that off the heat. And I'm going to let it cool, and then we'll use it on top of our cake. All right. When you do this at home, all your ingredients should be very cool before you assemble, mostly because you don't want the cream to melt, right? So hopefully I'll get this cooled off in time. I might just throw this in the fridge now that I'm thinking about it. Because as I look at it, I'm thinking, oh, it's so beautiful, but it's also really warm. Let's throw it in the fridge. Because I don't have any magic of television where I'm going to like whip out the finished compote. This is our compote. So into the fridge it's going. And out comes 2 gorgeous cups of cream. All right, so we're gonna whip this cream. And actually, you know what I would love is another bowl for this stand mixer. Can anybody grab me another bowl for the stand mixer?
I'll grab one.
Okay, thank you. And that gives me a chance to clean up a little bit. Oh, and you know what? Not only do I get a chance to clean up, but I get to tell you about the kirsch, which I forgot to tell you about. Yeah, that's great. Any old bowl will do. Thank you. I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of kirsch, which is the liqueur of the region. So kirsch refers to the cherries that grow in the Black Forest, and they make this incredible cherry brandy called Kirschwasser out of it, and it's just lush and gorgeous and so tasty. And so you add that in at the very end, unless you forget, and then you can add it in at the very end of the very end, like I just did. And what's nice about the kirsch is it's just reminiscent of the flavors of the forest, if you will. But it's not sweet. And it is a liqueur, so it does have alcohol in it. But if you want to burn the alcohol off, just cook it in the compote for like a minute, and the alcohol will all evaporate off. You can also, if you don't have kirsch, you can do some cherry juice. Would be nice to add a little bit of extra. You could do pomegranate juice is nice. If you put a little almond extract, that's reminiscent of the flavor of the cherries, because if you've ever tasted a cherry and thought about almonds, you are correct. There's a lot of wonderful almondy type flavor in the pits of the cherries. And guess what else I forgot? I forgot my whisk. Could I have a whisk for the stand mixer also? I thought I had it all, and then I forgot about whipping cream. It'll be like over there with the rest of the stand mixer stuff. All right. So I have a nice bowl here. I'm getting a nice whisk attachment flown in by our wonderful chef, Anna. Thank you. Oh, I love that you brought all the whisks. Very good. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, which one fits? We have so many stand mixers here that we actually have to check them. Is this the one?
Beautiful. First try.
First try. All right. So in goes the cream.
Going back to the kirsch,
yeah.
Can you find that in your traditional grocery store?
You know, more and more I've seen it in grocery stores, which is kind of funny. Because I feel like it was such an exotic ingredient for a while, and now, you know, there's beautiful cocktails made with kirsch. This cake is made with kirsch. There's a lot of fun little things that you can do with it. It's really good with fruit. So sometimes you can take like whatever's in season around the same time as cherries too, like peaches, nectarines, things like that. If you take a bunch of that fruit and toss it all together like for a fruit salad, and just like a teaspoon of kirsch on top and tossed together is a really elegant little salad, you know, with like some fresh thyme or basil or mint tossed in there too. It's just beautiful. It is alcohol though, so you know you're not using very much, and if there's any issues with anybody having alcohol that you don't want them to have alcohol, then don't do it. But it is a lovely little enhancement. So I like having a bottle of it. And the thing that's nice about it is if you have a bottle of it in your pantry, you will have that bottle forever. And it's brandy, it's pretty high alcohol. I think it's 40 proof. So there's plenty of alcohol, so you don't have to store it in your fridge or anything, which is great. Okay, so now, what did I do with my tray with all of my ingredients for this, I wonder? Hold on a second.
Quick intermission.
I know. So many ingredients, so little time.
In the meantime, I wanted to say also this filling freezes really great. So you can freeze it, you can make a double batch, you can put it on ice cream, on pancakes, you can save some for later in the season. So very versatile.
All right. We're going to add a little bit of sugar to this cream. So we're going to get it going first.
All right, there we go.
And don't start on the highest setting because then it'll just like explode all over the place. Once you start to see some little bubbles forming, it will be a little bit thicker, and so you can just keep ramping it up. Do you want to move it so you can see from straight down? Ooh. Is that helpful? A little bit? Okay.
Ooh, beautiful.
All right, and now I'm just going to add in about a 1/4 cup of sugar as it's going. And you can see it's starting to thicken up. So see how it's leaving a little trace of the whisk? That's what you want to see. And I'm also going to add in a little bit of vanilla. For flavor, for love. All right, see the thickening that's happening? When I get to about there, I'm going to stop. And the reason I'm going to stop is I don't want to over whip it. Now, it's not ready yet. See how it's kind of drippy? I don't want drippy. But if you're worried at all about over whipping it, you can always take the whisk off and do it by hand. And the way you're going to check is you give it a couple rounds, and that gives you a chance to get to the bottom of the bowl too. Give it a couple rounds and then come straight up and then flip it. So see that? It only took me a couple times, right? So be careful of over whipping, because over whipped cream will make you sad. Because what'll happen is it'll look a little grainy, and then it'll break, and then you'll be devastated by your broken cream. Okay, so I have a magic of television moment.
Ah, ta-da.
Cake. This is cake the first, cake the second's in the oven, but this one was baked earlier, and it is cold. So I don't have any heat coming off the cake at all. And the other thing you want to notice is it is still in the pan, which for those of us who bake a lot of cakes, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, it's still in the pan? It cooled in the pan? Like, what's up? So why do I want to cool it in the pan? A couple reasons. One is I want to maintain the structure of the cake. So this is a relatively thin cake, right? So it's long and it's wide. I don't want it to crack or collapse. And if I try to take it out while it's warm, I run the risk of it falling apart. So it's not like a tall layered cake where I'm going to have shorter pieces that I want to be able to move around easily. So this guy's going to stay in there for that. The other thing that's going to happen is when it comes out of the oven, it's still baking. Got residual heat working in there, and there's a lot of steam. So if I take it out of the pan, I'm going to lose a lot of steam, which means I'm going to lose a lot of moisture. And I want this cake to stay nice and moist. I put all those lush ingredients in there, and I want it to stay moist. I want to make it easy on myself, so I'm going to assemble the whole thing in the pan. I don't have time to worry about finding a thing to put this on. I don't have a plate big enough to put this cake on, so I'm going to serve it right in here. And the last thing, which is a little bit subtle, but you keep it in the pan, all that moisture stays in there, and it helps to continue to what we call bloom the cocoa. So that helps to deepen the chocolate flavor. So I would leave it in the pan the whole time, and in fact, you can even serve it right out of the pan if you want to. Now, I did do this with the sides, so that if I decide I want to take it out and put it on another surface to cut, I can just lift it up. So I'll show you what that looks like, right? Being really gentle here, but see how I can actually lift it up if I need to? So if at the end of the day you want to move it onto a big board, or let's say you made this cake for 2 events, so maybe half of it is going with you to your friend's cookout, and the other half is going to your friend's birthday, right? 2 things on the weekend. So you can do that too. So that's why you want to have the parchment hanging over the side. All right, so now let us lush it up. So here's your whipped cream, right? Nice texture, and on it goes. I love how sloppy it is too. It's just like, I'm just gonna dunk it on there. I don't have to be precise. I'm not like spreading buttercream. I am spreading joy, however. This is definitely a joyful thing. And look at the contrast. You've got beautiful, dark chocolate cake. You have white frosting, basically. It's really just whipped cream, yeah? Spreading it around. It looks gorgeous. Tuck it into the corners. Nobody wants to get a piece of cake that doesn't have love in it, right? Love comes in many forms, but one of them is definitely whipped cream. So get it on there. All right. And then I'm just going to spread it around. You can make it super smooth if you want to. I like a little bit of sort of spatula-ness, so I like that homemade look, right? Look at that. Isn't that so pretty? Isn't that great? I love it.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so pretty. Now, what kind of cake is this again? Is it a Kirschtorte? So does that mean cherry cake? Okay, it does. Spoiler alert, cherry cake. So we don't want to make people guess at what they're having. So I'm actually gonna finish the job here. At this point, I would take this and I would throw it in my fridge for an hour or two. We're not gonna do that today because I'm gonna taste it and make sure it's okay before I share it with our team here. But this guy will do well to set up for about an hour or two in the fridge. When I make this at home, I usually do it the day before I want to serve it, and I just leave it in the fridge for the day, you know, and then the next day it's perfect, like lush and sweet, and the dairy's nice and firm, so it's not super drippy. You know, it's just wonderful. But if you need to serve it on the same day, I would say at least an hour would be perfect. Okay, so I just have some chocolate here, and I'm going to take my little Y peeler, and I'm going to move it along the edge of the chocolate.
Bonnie, real quick,
Yeah.
I think we might have forgotten a step here. Do we
Oh,
need
no.
to put the cherry, the
Oh,
cherry
did I
sauce?
skip it? Oh, that's hilarious. I sure
All right,
did.
folks.
Okay.
There is cherries that go
There's
in here.
cherries underneath.
But we might have to improvise,
I
and
forgot
that's
about my
okay.
cherries. I can't believe it after all that work.
And that's live cooking, everybody.
And that's live action in the homemade kitchen. Hey, I have a question for you. How long has my cake been in the oven?
It has 14 more minutes to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so a little bit more time, but
That is so funny. I knew I was missing something. I panicked because I forgot my cream situation.
you know, it's the same flavors. So whether or not it goes on the bottom or the top,
Oh
I
my
personally
gosh,
think it'll
that's
still
so
taste
funny.
delicious.
Okay, so if you do it this way at home, and this happens to you, it's kind of great when I mess up because you can be like, oh, that girl messed up.
And that's what happens in the kitchen.
I did way better.
There's a little bit of TV magic, but this is live.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That's so funny.
And we do have some fresh cherries going on there as well.
I do. I'm going to show you what it's supposed to look like, and then we'll cheat it a little bit because we need to. Okay. So did you see how I made like little curls all over there? It's just nice to tell people what's inside. So it's definitely a chocolate cake. And again, you got this beautiful contrast. And then with the fresh cherries, it's up to you. If you feel like people can't handle a cherry that has a pit in it as a garnish, then pit them before you put them on. Sometimes the Kirschtorte is very very structured, very exact. So every piece has sort of a cherry on top. You can do it that way. You can also just scatter cherries around depending on it. It's nice in a way to pop the cherries on, like to tell people where to cut. I think that's kind of a cool thing. Like, oh, these are all going to be pieces, right? So as I put them on, and I do like it when I can see the stems because I think the stems are really cute.
If you do want to pit the cherries, I have a cute little suggestion that I've been doing lately.
Oh, yeah.
Using mint leaves, and you can kind of like
that's
cut a cherry in
adorable.
half, use some mint leaves to signify the leaves from the cherry tree, and it's just like a cute little decoration.
That is adorable. I love it.
Very summer.
So at this point, pretend that the cherry compote is underneath the whipped cream. And I would take this whole thing and I would stick it in the fridge. And I would leave it in the fridge for an hour or two. Because we don't have the magic of television cooled down compote just yet, I'm gonna just grab this one out of the fridge and see if it's a little bit closer to what we're going for here. Yeah, the pan is still even warm, but this is what's gonna be underneath, right? And so here's what that's gonna look like when you're all set and done. This is gonna be a little bit soft because it hasn't, the whipped cream hasn't set up at all. It's gonna be a tiny bit on the soft side. But here's what I'm gonna do, because no one has to know that I forgot to put the layer on. I'm just gonna put this on my tray, on my plate, like a little, first of all, can you see that color? It's so pretty. And then I'm gonna put my cherry cake on top.
Oh, beautiful.
Isn't that pretty?
Those are like perfect little squares.
Yeah, and when you chill it, they will, they'll hold their shape a little bit more. You won't have a bunch of cream all over your knife. And then you can use whatever you have to pull it out of there. The first one's always a doozy, right? All right, so here it goes. I'm just gonna put it right there, like jaunty.
I love it.
So cute.
I love the improvisation too. I mean, this
Improv Olympics.
kind of looks like something you would get at a restaurant with a little sauce at the bottom.
Yeah, a little saucy plate. Here, let's see. Let me find the pretty side. I mean, it's also pretty, but let's do that. There, can you see that?
Cutie patootie.
Cutie patootie. And it's, I love that it's like definitely got layers and components, but I didn't have to spend hours and hours doing it. I mean, really, aside from me pre-making the cake before we started today so it would be cool enough to do, everything else we did together. So that took like 40 minutes for everything, which is pretty great. So if you can remember to put the cherry compote on before you put the whipped cream on, I'm gonna say thumbs up. This cherry compote is pretty warm, so if I had put it on the cake, it would have soaked into the cake and then it would have melted all the whipped cream that I'm doing in live action. So this gives you a chance to see what to do if you are having, if like people have started to arrive at your house and you are just now finishing your cake, which I think is great. I'm gonna taste it just to make sure that all those flavors go together, because what if something horrible happened and they just don't work?
Exactly. It's the same flavors at the end of the day, even if they're in a different layer format.
Can you see that like piece right there, that bite? I've got cherries, right? I got cherries, I've got chocolate, and I've got cream. This cake, there's a story about how this cake is connected to a costume that's worn in the region that has like these adorable like little red hats and like, I think it's dark dresses and then like these white blouses, and the whole thing together sort of looks like the cake does. Look it up. Like, go ahead and look at it, like find a search engine and go for it and check it out, because it when you see it, you'll recognize this cake. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna try it. Oh, okay. So it's delicious. It's creamy. It's lush. There's that little bit of bitterness in the cocoa and from the cherries in the compote, contrasted with the sweetness of the cream, is just totally making it. And honestly, the warm compote underneath with the not super cold whipped cream is really bringing the flavors home, I have to say. So I might mess this up again sometime and have it this. I'm just gonna, just one more, just. Yep. All the things. So, if you want a rich, chocolatey, well-balanced cake, make one of these. This Kirsch Torte is magnificent and elegant, but also easy and fast to make. Great for sharing. It's indulgent, but it's also really refreshing because I don't have like a big, thick, heavy buttercream on there. I just have some whipped cream. So it's really elegant and lovely and simple. So I'm going to say recommend. I can't wait till y'all try it. Let us know how it goes. Let us know what you're up to out there, what you're cooking. And check out savorrecipes.com too, because there's a lot of other beautiful desserts from around the world. So this whole thing is about savoring the world. And each month we're going through a different country and making another beautiful dessert from a different region, which is super fun. You can find this and all of our classes on demand on Homemade. And you're watching us on YouTube right now, so give the Homemade channel some love. Save us, like us, subscribe, and then every time we have a new video, you're going to get alerted to it, which is kind of fun. I love that when something new pops up in my feed. So, Anna, thank you so much. Thank you all so much for being here. Go forth and cook. Serve some food for your nearest and dearest. Am I missing anything besides?
I think that's it, folks. Keep an eye out for our next Savor recipe. It's an exciting one, and we'll have it posted on homadecooking.com. Also, turn on the bell for notifications when we post on YouTube.
Oh, I love turn on the bell. Turn on the bell, y'all.
That's right.
Happy cooking. Thank you for being here. See you later.